Good evening, everyone, and thanks a lot for joining today. My name is Santiago Figueroa. I am Chief Operating Officer at Palobiofarma. We are a small biotech company based in Navarra, Spain. The company was founded 20 years ago by a group of very skilled medicinal chemists. I'm not one of them, with a very clear goal. Their goal was to discover new molecules that can tweak biological pathway in a very precise way and hopefully turn them into safe and effective treatments for patients who don't have many options today. I'm really grateful to have the chance to share with you one of those molecules, a new compound that we're developing to reduce hyperphagia and body weight in people with PWS. And Nick, I think you can also include it in your presentation. I think it wasn't there. We call this compound PFF-999. So what is PFF-999? PFF-999 is a phosphodiesterase 10 inhibitor, PD10 inhibitor for short. Let me explain quickly how this works. PDEs are enzymes whose job is to break down something called cAMP. Now, cAMP is what we call a second messenger. It is produced inside cells by an enzyme called adenylyl cyclase, usually in response to signals coming from outside. For example, when dopamine binds to its receptor. What cAMP does is basically carry that signal further inside the cell, triggering different processes depending on the type of cell. That's why it's called a second messenger. It takes a message from outside the cell and passes it on inside the cell. Now, PD10 is one particular enzyme in this family, and its job is to regulate how much of this second messenger is present in certain cells. PFF-999 blocks PD10 very selectively. It doesn't touch any other phosphodiesterases or other enzymes or receptors, so that its effect is simple. By blocking this enzyme, the PD10, we allow cAMP, the second messenger, to build up within the cell, and that will ultimately stimulate the cell. Now, here's the key part. PD10 is not everywhere in the body. It is mainly in the brain, especially in the striatum. And one area in particular is the nucleus accumbens. This region sits right in the middle of brain circuits that control things like emotion, reward processing, homeostasis, and cognitive control of behavior. All processes that play a role in the complex regulation of appetite and hunger. So what we have seen is that blocking PD10 there with PFF-999 increases cAMP in those neurons, which reduces the drive to seek food. But there is more than that. PD10 is also in many fat cells in the body. And when we block the PD10 there, raising cAMP has an effect a bit like the effect of adrenaline in fat cells. So it makes the fat cells burn more energy and produce heat. So in short, PFF-999 works in two ways. Centrally in the brain to reduce food seeking, and peripherically in fat to increase energy use. Now, that's a theory, but the question is, does that work in PWS? And to answer that question is why we have designed a clinical trial. This clinical trial started in March 2023 and is now close to completion. This study is led by Dr. Assumpta Caixas in the Hospital Parc Taulí in Barcelona. Dr. Kalshas is a recognized expert in PWS, and we have been very, very lucky to have her. She and her team have done an amazing job enrolling 33 patients in less than 2 years in only one site. This study is a randomized, double-blind, two-way crossover trial with an optional open-label extension. We have recruited 3 cohorts. We have recruited the first cohort with adults, where we gave once daily PFF-999. The second cohort, we have adults, where we gave twice daily PFF-999. And a third, adolescents cohort with adolescents over 12, where we tested both those regimens. The last cohort is now fully enrolled, and the last patient should finish at the beginning of next year. Now, since this is a phase 2 study, our main objective is to make sure PFF-999 is safe and well tolerated in people with PWS, because this is actually the first time anyone has given a PDE10 inhibitor to patients with PWS. But of course, we are also looking closely at efficacy to answer questions like, does PFF-999 reduce hyperphagia? Does it affect body weight and body composition? Does it have an impact on behavior, biomarkers that might be important for future studies? So safety first, but we are also gathering as much information as possible on how the drug performs. Now, since the study is fully enrolled, I thought that we could already share some baseline characteristics of the patients we have enrolled in our trial. So you can see here age. We have patients from 12 up to 49 years old. Gender, here we have a higher proportion of females. We don't yet know why, but this is something to consider for future trials. We don't know whether now, females have a higher will to participate in clinical trial, or this is a Spanish phenomenon. We don't know. This is something that we have to pay attention to. Obesity, most of the adults were obese, as we have expected. In adolescents, the prevalence of obesity was lower in our trial, which also makes total sense for that age group. Looking at the genetic subtypes, in adults, we saw much more patients with deletions compared to non-deletions. In adolescents, it was the opposite. But overall, the ratio is about 60% of patients with deletions and 40% patients with uniparental disomy or imprinted defects, which is very much in line to what we have expected. One important point is medications. We see here that all patients under 18 were on growth hormone, but interestingly, so were most adults. All adults, males, were on testosterone, and we saw a high burden of psychiatric medications. About half of the patients were on antipsychotics, and more than half of the patients were on antidepressants. We don't have yet this data for the adolescents cohort, so therefore you are not seeing the data here. But this gives us a very good real-world picture of the population we are studying. Now, what next with this compound? We as a company are fully committed to moving forward this program as quickly as possible. That means we are now preparing the phase 3, even if we haven't read out the phase 2 study. But the plan is first, finish the phase 2 early next year, then report the results shortly after, and if everything goes well, start a phase 3 study after summer next year. This trial will enroll about 100 patients across Europe, the US, and Australia. And now, before I close my presentation, I don't want to miss this opportunity to express our most sincere appreciation for the patients and family who joined this study. Without them, we wouldn't be able to advance this therapy. So thank you very much. Also, a huge thanks to Dr. Kalshas and her team, and to our CRO, Astrum, that have also done a wonderful job running this trial. And thank you very much for your attention today. And we hope to share our results very soon with you.